In this video, we're talking all about ink pads, how to choose them, how to care for them, when to use them. And we're going to start with black ink pads because really that's probably the most common. That's kind of one of the number one questions. Which black ink do I buy? And because we use black ink so much. So Stampin' Up! Has two choices. We have my well-loved, well-worn Memento pad and StazOn. And we're going to just talk about the differences here. So I will. And this is how I keep track of them. The Memento ink is the basic black, which you just want to use for everything. It's easy to clean. It because nice coverage. It's just my go-to pad. And it is perfect to use with Stampin' blends. This is alcohol resistant. It's fast drying. So this is how I remember what to use. I put a sticker on here and said, for blends. So now I know this is my everyday stamping and it's my blends. For anything that's going to get wet, you wouldn't put anything wet on here. So for anything that's going to be wet, and here's my tip to put this on, that's going to be watercolor pencils. It won't matter if you're not going to get them wet, then you can use them on the other. But if you're going to get them wet and turn them into watercolor, aqua painters, blender pens, all of these you want StazOn. You also want StazOn if you want to stamp on wood or some other surfaces, plastic, so you can do a lot with that. This is very permanent and it's much harder to clean, which is why I wouldn't do it for my everyday. It does stain your stamps, and the Stampin' Up! Does sell a StazOn cleaner. To be perfectly honest, I don't use it. I only use it if I'm going to pass my stamps on at some point. I don't care if my stamps are stained as long as they're clean and I can still put them in yellow, then I'm good. But I love this as a ready reference. So I just encourage you to do that. That's my little tip for doing that. That takes care of the black. Then we're going to move on to the regular pads. And I don't even have a full collection here, but how cool is this? So these are a whole bunch from the Bold Brights. So another question is, where would I start with ink pads? You have a few choices. One is to go with the color family. I think the Brights and the Regals are just awesome places to start. And get a set of 10. The other way I would look at it, if you just want to get a few at a time, is to pick your pattern paper that you want to work with. If you love a designer series paper, it'll say on the back of those what colors of ink are being used. And then I would buy 2 or 3 of those inks so you can create. You know, the important thing is to get creating, but then you'd have what you need to create and have things that go with that paper. So if you're buying, let's say you're buying a set of the Bold Brights, then I would also encourage you to buy a mixed pack of paper of the Bold Brights. One of the best things about Stampin' Up! Is that all the colors coordinate. It just makes your work look great. You're not looking for that right kind of green to go with something. So I think that is a great way to look at it. Now, if you're just getting started too, I like to encourage darker colors, not necessarily the pastels, unless you're a real pastel person. But that's primarily because we can use, it's called second generation stamping or stamping off. So I'm going to take, and because these are photopolymer, I'm putting them on my little pad here. I'm just going to take this stamp right here. And this is an inside of a flower. And do you see how I can keep stamping and I'm getting lighter colors? This one's very light. Now what's really cool, I can take, this is the part that goes over it. And I may not get this on so good the way I'm looking. Do you see if I do the dark on the dark, you don't see much difference, but now watch when I do this one. Look at how beautiful that is. And even on the light, I could keep now and go on the light. I'm not caring too much about light, but how pretty is this? So you can see how I can get lighter colors of this by using Generation. So to just get you started, to just know that that is a really helpful thing. Next, just trying to go down my whole list of things here. Let's look at the stamp pads themselves. So I took the shrink wrap off this, but I haven't done anything else. So this is my stamp pad. It's going to open like this. If you have trouble, it's going to loosen up over time and be much easier. Some different tips for making it slide better here, because you see how that would be. You could, some people run even a candlestick right along here, get a little of the wax, or you can take your chapstick or little Vaseline, anything like that, if that's an issue. Otherwise, it'll just slide like this, and you can hear it when it locks. Now to close it, I need to put it all the way out because you'll feel when it's ready to turn, and you'll hear it snap again. Now in the back, we have this color is, let's see, what color is this? Color is pale papaya. I said it is very pale. So I'm going to pick up the pale papaya here. So this is what I do. Here's the first one. And I could be using my take my pick tool, but I'm just using my fingers. So on this side, to keep them uniform, I'm putting my sticker right there. Now I'm going to take a second one. These are in different languages, but the color will still tell me, even if oh, this one's pretty good. Papaya, pale, or whatever. I'm going to put this on the other side. Because if I put these on the shelf wrong, I'm still going to know what color this is. And then I'm going to take one that is, I'm going to keep adding these. Let's see, I might go back to my take. Okay, I'm going to peel this off. I'm going to take one more of these. Actually, I'm going to take this one that was still left on here. Let's take this one. I'll get rid of those. I'm going to open this back up again. And I am going to put this right down here. This is just the color. But let's say if I have this sitting on my counter, if I have this open, it's helpful to have this. Because if I have three colors that are a little similar, let's say I have pumpkin pie maybe and a yellow, or maybe I have three yellows out. I'm not sure why I would, but if you did, this will help tell you what color it is so you don't put your ink in the wrong paper. Now, you're going to notice when these are closed up, they are upside down. So the pad is automatically keeping the ink towards the bottom. So let's talk about, first, before we're going to talk about re-inking. But you can also buy ink spots. And there's a couple of ways. There is a set of classic stamp pads. They come as I don't remember if it's 5 or 7, but they come in a certain set of colors. You can also buy them uninked, buy the refill, like we're going to talk about inking things here, and make your own colors. And you just know you'll go through the ink a little faster. They'll need re-inking more than a regular pad would. And you can also get them, if you subscribe to Paper Pumpkin, you get 1 or 2 of these every month, and they always make them a different color. So it's a great way to build your collection. Some people like these to take on travel because then you're taking a little bits of stuff, or people that don't want to have a lot of things. So this is a stamp pad of choice for some people. So now let us talk about re-inking. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a stamp here. This pad has been re-inked lately, but I wanted to show you what you do when you get too much ink on something. So we are going to ink it even more to differentiate. So this is what I do for re-inking. I just squeeze my dots around, all around, and then I typically just use this cover and spread it out. Now, when I bring a stamp in here, let's see, this is the wrong color, but let's use it. Okay, so let's do this first. Now I'm ready to stamp. I might go around all different places on here to make sure that the ink is all set, if that makes sense. But let's make sure I'm going to put more on to just make sure that I have too much on here for what I want to show. Okay, so I'm putting all that on, and it's really going to be too much ink. Now, if it's too much ink, I can leave this out to air dry, of course, for a while. But I just want to show you, this is a distinctive stamp, but I find this works the same way for some of the bolder stamps. So you might look at this for any bold stamp. This, if I ink right now, I have so much ink. Do you see how it's all just running together? You can tell there is too much ink on this stamp. So I'm going to clean this off. And I did this to be really dramatic, but sometimes if you're using particularly a distinctive stamp that has all these different shades right in the stamp, this way the stamp made so it looks like a watercolor when you're done, you'll particularly notice it then. So if I have too much ink, I'm going to take an old gift card, kind of card. I'm going to clean it right afterwards. I have a wet paper towel. I'm going to clean it. So I could, I could keep it, but I just like to use something I'm not really going to care about. And look how easy this is. I could use a plastic spoon as well to do this, but I love doing this. I'm going to just take my ink And I am going to move the excess off. Look how cool that is. Look how much ink I have on this. I really did pour that on. Okay, that is pretty funny. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. And I even, of course, have it all over my hands and not another paper towel, all for the sake of trying to really demonstrate something clearly. Okay, so I went a little overboard there, but all is good. But now, do you see how the ink is sitting there? Now, this will absorb back in and come back in afterwards. But now I'm going to stamp on the drier part, the part that's going to be just right. Oh, this isn't right. So we'll see if this even makes sense. Maybe I didn't do it enough. Okay. It's going to look better than this. And I probably still have too much ink on here. But I just wanted to show how you can actually play with your ink pads and move them around. But you can see how you want the different. If I had, let me see here. Let me see. Let's try this one more time because, you know, we don't give up easily. Let me just clean off that with my chamois. And let's pull this in again. Problem is, okay, I have a Kleenex here. We'll try this. I'm going to move it again so we see it because this is really, really a lot of ink. And I probably put way too much ink on it. Way more than I needed to demonstrate this point. So just know that that is what not to do. Sometimes that helps too. Much better. Okay, so you see how we're getting all these different little gradients of color in there. Excuse me. Dry throat or something. So that is something good to do with your ink pads, and that would be how to ink them. So the other two inks that I just want to talk about, this is a Versamark pad. And a Versamark pad has a couple of uses. Actually, it has many, many uses. But the two most basic ones are, this is a great one for embossing, but we will be covering embossing in a different video. But also, it does a great tone on tone. And again, I'm going to use this again. It's not so important when it's a small stamp. But do you see how this makes this lovely background? It's this tone on tone look. And you can make some really fun, interesting looks. When it dries, it's going to be a little bit lighter than that, but it's still going to show. So it makes this two-tone kind of pattern. So that and embossing are what you would use that for. And then the last ink is the white craft pad. I had just re-inked this, and I had too much ink on this one too, but it'll serve its purpose. So I left it open. When you buy this, it comes uninked, and you're going to squeeze and put the ink on like I showed before, smooth it out. You can see where I've inked. This ink kind of sits on top. It's different. It doesn't absorb in like the dye ink. And it gives you, again, it's good for embossing. So that would be one use for it. If you just stamp with it, it actually gives a very light look. So it's not going to, if you're wanting like a bright white, it's not going to do that. There's a lot of techniques you can do with this. And the one thing I love using this for is if I'm doing snowflakes. So if you just imagine scattered soft snowflakes on a dark background like this, that is kind of my favorite thing to do with it. And that covers, you'll see the playlist on the side here that has all the other videos in the series, and more will be added. So keep coming back. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to know when new ones come out. And these are good for a reference point. You'll notice I even put chapters in. So if you're looking for the black ink pads, you can just look right below there and go there if you can't remember which one is for which or what the tip was. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video.